Franchisors are 100% responsible for motivating their franchisees.
How can any person be responsible for motivating someone else 100%?
They still have to. They just
They just do.
They just do. Yeah,
Do what they
that's
do.
my argument. There's the granular day-to-day motivation to get up and get your socks on, and it takes two, baby.
It takes two. No, I could have sworn you said I was right.
No, but I wasn't arguing that. Especially because you might not want someone who doesn't know what their motivation is, and they just say it's money. Welcome to the Full Disclosure Podcast with me, Ed Pennell, the founder of The Franchised, and my co-host,
Joe Middleton from Franchise Business School.
Each episode, one co-host has to make and support a strong statement from around the franchising industry. The other has to argue against it. This week it's my turn, so let's get on with it. So, franchisors, you know who they are, right? They are 100% responsible for motivating their franchisees.
Right, okay. How can a franchisor be 100% responsible for motivating someone else? How can any person be responsible for motivating someone else 100%?
It's not 100% of the time, but they 100% should have a responsibility to motivate them.
Okay, so
Definitely.
yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I agree that there should be systems and processes in place to support franchisee motivation and uplift franchisees. But how can a franchisor take that responsibility on when a franchisee will have so many other external factors that affect their day-to-day motivation?
Yeah, of course, there's going to be day-to-day elements, but and they can't keep an eye on them 24/7.
It would be a bit scary.
Yeah. Very overbearing. But if you don't feel like you have a responsibility to motivate your franchisees, you're not 100% putting the effort in to make that business work, the brand work as a whole. It's like if you had an employee and just went, I'm not going to bother chasing them up. They can do whatever they want. Your business isn't going to do that well. So therefore the brand won't do that well unless the franchisor is themselves motivated to motivate all members of the network.
But franchisees aren't employees, they're
No.
business owners in their own right. So they need to be self-starters, they need to be motivated and be responsible for motivating themselves as well.
Yeah, that's true. They need to have that motivation themselves. But I think from a franchisor's perspective, they probably know what those motivations are as well, right? Because if they've done the recruitment right at the very beginning, they've worked out what are the motivations of this individual, and how can we get them to the point where they're achieving their goals and exit strategies and all of that kind of stuff. So you've then got a really useful tool to, on a regular basis, touch base with that franchisee and say, well, look, you want to get to here, right? So we need to make something happen. The franchisee can very quickly and easily just become kind of down on themselves and just, I can't do this, I'm terrible, this is all gone badly wrong and all that sort of stuff. Without that external support, which is probably a big part of the reason why they've entered into a franchise. Anyway, they've not gone out and set up their own business on their own because they perhaps know they need somebody there to kick them along a little bit. So, yeah, I think they still have to. They just do.
They just do.
They just do. Yeah,
Do what they
that's
do.
my argument.
So, full disclosure, I completely agree that franchisors should try to motivate their franchisees as far as possible. However, there should be some sort of system in place to do that, so that if a franchisor doesn't have a big head office team, or there isn't that system in place, if the franchisor becomes unwell or something happens, it's not solely reliant on the franchisor, and the franchisees have still got some sort of system mechanism in place, whether it's guest trainers coming in, whether it's support calls, or looking at a 5-year plan in line with the term of the franchise agreement, or whatever it is. There needs to be something in place that's a system in its own right. But franchisees do come on board to run their own businesses. And I think that from the word go, when you're doing your initial calls with someone looking to come on board, you need to be clear with them that running a business isn't a walk in a park a walk in the park, and they need to be able to motivate themselves, and there will be days when they don't feel like doing it, but they need to keep their head in the game and look at the bigger picture. And I think that clarity needs to come from the word go when you first have those calls.
I think just sort of talking this through so far, what I'm realising or thinking about now is that actually there's different types of motivations. There's the granular day-to-day motivation to get up and get your socks on and and pull your socks up and get on with it. I don't know, I'm mixing the metaphors here, but you know what I mean. And that's the franchisee's focus is that's the franchisee's responsibility, is to motivate themselves on a day-to-day basis to get out there and do it, as well as have that long-term kind of focus and vision in play. The franchisor, I think their responsibility to motivate the franchisees is not on that granular detail. It's actually for that longer-term business plan and say, right, we're not hitting the mark here. What can we do to help you to get to that point? And if you find out that they're not doing the activities, well, look, you want to get to there, you're going to need to do this, and kind of help and coach them through that process, I guess.
And then also, I guess it comes into play that the franchisee might have those external factors themselves and personal circumstances that mean that they can't motivate themselves. Sometimes they're struggling with their mental health, or they've got a divorce or something happening that means that they're not feeling spreading the sparkle of the brand at that time. And so no matter how much the franchisor will try to motivate them, they're not able to. So I don't think the statement franchisors are 100% responsible for motivating franchisees is necessarily accurate, because it's just simply not possible all the time.
No, but I wasn't arguing that. I was saying
you were.
I was arguing that they 100% have a responsibility to motivate franchisees. Perhaps it's just whoever wrote this one. Okay. I don't know who that would have been. That statement.
No, it's in the benefit of everyone involved in the brand to have motivated network of franchisees. It's a win-win when the franchisees are motivated, and I do think that franchisors have to take the lead and lead by example and show that they're motivated and forward thinking and fired up as well.
That's an important point, actually, isn't it? Is that they're just as invested in the franchisee's business, can help the franchisee to have the confidence to say, yeah, I've almost got a duty to these people because they're motivated to support me. I shouldn't be sort of having another golf day or whatever it is, right?
Yeah, because I do that all the time.
Yeah.
But when you've got a motivated network of franchisees, it helps them to think creatively and outside of the box and look for opportunities that maybe they wouldn't have seen if they weren't sort of up and out there with their socks on.
With their socks on, yeah. Playing golf. So in terms of the types of motivations then.
Yeah,
so
what are they?
For franchisees, I was gonna put this to you a little bit and just say, what do you think from your experience has been the main motivating factor for franchisees on a day-to-day basis? What kind of gets them to pull their socks up and go out there and not playing golf?
Just to put the socks on in the first place, I think they need to focus on before they pull them up. So I think that in my experience, the biggest motivator has to be when someone has dedicated their life, they've been to uni for years and they've dedicated their life to a profession, and they've got stuck in and realised actually there's a lot more red tape around it than what they originally intended to do. So my background is predominantly in the pet industry and the children's activities space. So veterinary professionals, because they love animals doing what they do. and actually finding that the animal part is a small percent of what they need to do. They need to be researching, they need to be working not only the hours in practice, but then doing a lot of burning the midnight oil to do ongoing study. And then with the children's activity space, predominantly teachers coming in to look for franchising opportunities. They get into teaching and find less and less time spent actually with the children doing the teaching, and more on the red tape side of things. And then usually there'll be a life event, and that's what motivates them to change. So whether it is moving to a new location or having a family, and they look and reprioritise what they're doing to get more control over their lives.
Yeah. So I find it interesting what you're saying there, because I've probably spent 15 years speaking to people that are at that point where something's happened in their life that is making them want to make a change or a move in their career, whether that's investing in a franchise, starting their own business, or just changing jobs. And I think I've kind of I've narrowed it down to like 4 or 5 different reasons why people do it. And I think the one that everyone kind of thinks is the reason why people move on is money. And I think it is a big factor, and it is a reason why people change whatever they're doing in their career. But I actually think it's just something that supports them to hit the other 4. Like, if someone's going to invest in a franchise, the numbers have got to work. If anyone's got to change jobs, the salary's got to work, right? You can't get away from that. Money is super important, and they won't make a change unless that's right. But the other things that are kind of driving them to make these changes are sort of supported by having the money available to do it. So the first one is to have more control. So control over the hours that they work, where they work, who they work for, the types of projects that they're working on. Some form of control over what the future of their life looks like is one really important motivator and factor for people making a change. The next one is taking on a new challenge. Kind of think that's what you were kind of leaning towards with the teachers and things like that, really, is when you're stuck in an industry or stuck in a job for a long period of time, you're labelled as that, and it's very difficult to then become an accountant to be a pet carer. It's very difficult for them to transition. So that's a motivator for people maybe looking at a franchise, because okay, these people can actually help me, train me in getting to that point. But the main thing is, they just want to do something different. It's boring being an accountant, surely, for all that time.
I've never been one myself, but I can see that to be in a role like that, you wouldn't necessarily have the sales and marketing experience, or there'd be skill set gaps that you weren't able to fill and had no experience in. So the attraction of coming on board with the franchise, because it's got all the systems and processes laid out, would be really good.
Yeah. The third one is to make an impact. So sometimes that can be an issue or a pain that they've experienced in their lives. Maybe it's something a loved one's experienced, something that's caused the pain, and they want to make an impact so that the rest of the country, the rest of the world doesn't feel that pain. Or it could be making an impact in their local community. Actually, they just want to be a good person to the people in the local area. And so that's another reason why people change, and that's change jobs and invest in a franchise or start a business. And then the final one, I find it difficult to kind of label or brand it, really, but it's like a feeling of some form of self-importance, being able to tell your friends and family, I'm doing this. I'm a director now. I own my own business. I'm an entrepreneur. Everyone likes that word, right? Or perhaps not so much anymore. But having that kind of feeling that you've achieved something maybe in your life, perhaps that's the kind of other reason why it doesn't always fit in so well with franchising so much. But these are all factors. All of those sort of 4 or 5 things when you're recruiting franchisees, I think are really important, because then it enables you in the long run to be able to support them more effectively, because you can say, look, I know you're not hitting the revenues, but actually you are making an impact, you are making a difference, and maybe we need to find a way for you to shout about that more, which then in turn will help out with the money side of things. So knowing those motivations are super important from the early days, especially because you might not want someone who's doesn't know what their motivation is, and they just say it's money.
Yeah. And I always encourage franchisors to say, and why? So why are you interested in this franchise opportunity? Oh, because I want to have a better work-life balance. Well, why? Why do you want a better work-life balance? Because I want to be there more for my children. Well, why is that important to you? And then you really get down to the nitty-gritty of what their why is for coming on board with your brand.
Yeah, but I think identifying those higher up kind of blocks that I've put them into there really can help you then to almost in your own head quickly shift gears and say, okay, maybe they match up better with this support from this individual than that one over there. So
no, absolutely. And I think almost the ones that you've categorised could be tick boxes on a form that the franchisors. So I've got an application form that it's called an application form. It's not really an application form. It's just a form that I go through with people who are interested in coming on board. But we could have those as tick boxes on there so that we can identify which one is the motivator.
Application forms, that's one for another conversation, I think.
Let me make a note.
We won't go into it now, but okay, so franchisors are 100% responsible for motivating their franchisees. I still think, yeah.
I think that they are definitely responsible for doing their best to motivate their franchisees, but the franchisees have to take responsibility for motivating themselves too.
It takes two, baby.
It takes two. No, it's going to rain now.
But it does. Yeah, you're right. They both need to.
Pardon?
I said you are sort of right. No, you're right. It takes both parties to be motivated to make it successful, but that still means that franchisors 100% have to have some responsibility.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm still taking it.
Oh. I could have sworn you said I was right, though. I heard it here.
Oh dear. Here's what's coming up next on the Full Disclosure Podcast.
So my statement this week is that franchisors should not be able to dictate changes if the franchisees disagree.
Thanks for listening, and if you enjoyed this episode, please make sure you hit the subscribe button to be alerted for when the next episode is out. Also, please share the podcast far and wide, because the more people we can educate about franchising, the better. Catch you on the next one. Bye-bye.